Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's Interview Chair. Interview Chair is brought to you by Dog News Magazine, America's weekly magazine dedicated to the sport of purebred dogs. This week on the chair, we have Steve Dainard. And I said his last name right, Steve Dainard. Take a listen to Steve. Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's Interview Chair. And this week on the chair, we have my are we dear friends or just long-time friends?
Bosom buddies there, buddy.
Bosom buddies. We've known each other a long time.
We have.
Steve Dainard. Did I say it right?
You said it right.
Well, I just call you Big Fella. Big Fella or Stevie. So,
I tried to put that on my business card one time. It just didn't work for me.
Oh, Big Fella?
There you go.
How's it going, Steve? What's the weather like there today?
Good. Actually, it's pretty good, nice and sunny, just a little bit on the cold side, but I'm hopeful that it's going to improve and all this winter stuff's going to be behind us pretty quick. How about where you are? I heard you got some snow.
Well, I'm up here in the north. Yeah,
right.
We have snow. We have snow.
North,
and
right?
Excuse my lighting right now. I'm still playing with it in here. I'm sure Doc's going to give me hell for it, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. He can fix it with all his little stuff.
It's not rocket science, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And hey, maybe you can use AI to enhance it.
Oh, Jesus.
Don't get you started, right?
We were just talking about that prior to this. And we'll stay away from that for now anyway.
Yes.
All right, let's get started, Stevie. Let's say, how did you get started in this crazy sport?
Great question. So, we originally had flat-coated retrievers, and my dad used to go hunting pretty regularly.
How old were you?
So this would have been, when we had the flat coats, I was like 10, 11. This would have been like our, kind of early 70s. And my dad had always seen the springers in the field, wherever he went hunting, and really liked the size of them, English Springer Spaniels. And so we had gotten a couple of flat-coated retrievers from Vern Vogel from Pennsylvania. Great guy.
I remember Vernon. He was great.
Yeah. He was the Bolingbrook kennel, and we got a couple of dogs.
I showed Jamie for him a couple times.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. He used to come to Canada all the time. It was great. What a great guy. And he used to come with his son occasionally as well. And him and my dad were great buddies. And, he was a really good dog person. I've since learned that we got talking about flat-coated retrievers with somebody in the States, and I asked about him, and they're like, oh, yeah, he passed away. And I think I remembered that, but I couldn't remember the details around it. Regardless, it kind of seems like a lifetime ago, but what a great guy, and what a lot of really great memories. But, my dad really kind of liked the way that English Springer Spaniels, kind of worked the size. And because we lived in Toronto, in the city, a smaller breed kind of made more sense. So the next opportunity we had, get another dog, we ended up buying an English Springer Spaniel from a really more of a field kennel in Uxbridge. And we didn't know any difference because, like I said, my dad was hunting, and that's what he wanted the dogs for. And so around the same time, so this would have been around 1976, 1977, what happened was is my dad's my dad's sister and her husband moved back to Toronto, and they had bull terriers and had shown in the 70s as well. And actually my Aunt Marilyn, who was the second oldest, my dad's the oldest of 10 kids, my Aunt Marilyn used to hang out the dog shows with Marilyn Kaduna. And helped her at the booth and stuff like that. So they said, well, hey, if you got a purebred dog, you got to get a purebred bitch. You got to go to dog shows. And that's literally how it started. We went to our first dog show with Corky who was a really classic field bred, puppy. He was literally 6 months in a day. And we showed that bugger Will for 6 months straight. And we got one reserve, and we were at cloud nine. He got his.
We all started that way.
Oh my God. We got it handed to us in a big way. And at the time there was a really super couple from Shanty Bay up just outside of Barrie, George and Barbara, was the last name Boyd, I think their name was, and they were the Pheasant Lane English Springer Spaniels.
Yeah.
And they had a dog named Pheasant Lane's Enterprise, a black and white puppy who was really handsome, and his name was Kirk. And so Barbara was doing a lot of winning with a dog the same time we had Corky. And so we did beat him once, and we ended up going reserve, because we were just on cloud nine because we beat this puppy that was just kicking our butts to hell and back, right?
Yeah.
And so we ended up connecting with the Shaughnessy's, who were also from the Barrie area, a long-time Springer family. And we bought a more of a confirmation bred bitch from them. And ultimately, we kind of bred the two of them together, and we ended up getting our first litter, which we got our first champion out of. So that kind of would have been kind of approaching, 78, 1978 solidly now. And so we were thrilled on that as well. Oh my God, I got to tell you. So the dog that we bred out of that, his name was Bow and Arrow was his registry, and we called him Bow. And, we had gotten, him, I got the majority of his points on him. We were needing 1 point. And my dad ended up selling him to a buddy of his that he worked with, because now we were kind of getting more ingrained in Springers, and we just bought Danny, which I'll get back to in a second. And so the last show of the year we had entered him at was Credit Valley down at the X. And we had entered to Megan Nutbeam, and I'd never shown her before. We didn't really kind of know who the players were, the judges were, etc. And I showed up, and oh my God, Will, she loved me. And there was a big entry in Springers, and of course all the blonde hair, and yes ma'am, no ma'am, it was all sweet as pie, And
that's Sean Cassidy showing Springer Spaniels.
There we go. And ended up finishing the dog with a 5-point win on the day. And that's not to say that this was political or whatever, just the stars aligned on that day. And she was vibing the package, and I finished with 5 points over all these American champions, because back in the day Springers used to get like 35 and 40 these dogs regularly at shows, regularly. That was a regular all breed show. It was highly competitive, and as you're aware, at that time, Gary and Elaine were going through a separation, and Gary McDonald had this first edition dog, who was Daniel Spaniel. And so my dad and him got talking, and my dad ended up buying him for me as a junior dog. Paid $2,000 for him, and that was in 1979.
Well, he was a hell of a dog.
Oh my God, yeah.
The time, he was a hell of a dog.
Well, the great thing about it, though, is that he was being used locally, primarily by Diana Naughton, had used him a couple of times. She was an immigrant Springer lady, and so we found ourselves in really like a short 3-year timeline of going to now having to understand about managing a stud dog who was being services are being requested. So we really, and Diana, my mom, became friends very quickly, and that really helped us, because we had the benefit of now a mentor who was willing to share her information. And I started shortly after that to show, because Diana was lovely, but she was not very talented, and so I started showing dogs for her. So now I found myself, not only finishing my parents' dogs, but also Diana's dogs, and that was a really that lasted for years. I mean, that was a really great relationship.
Diana was wonderful.
Oh my God, just absolutely loved her. We used to drive out to. She lived in Orono, just kind of up 35 115, just north of the 401, and we would spend like hours and hours and hours at her place, and she liked to have a cocktail, and so ultimately we'd be up till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning just talking dogs, and it was always about structure. And at that time, there was a lot of discussion, with Quentin Laham and Casey Gardner and Betty McHugh's teachings.
Yeah.
And if you did not understand structure, you were not part of the conversation. It was just culturally the way that dogs, breeding, showing evolved. And from there, you were learning additional, the icing on the cake. You were learning about style variances and stuff like that. But really, the conversation always started with structure. And
That's true. Eh? I remember even back in junior handling, every prize was that dog steps book. It was always out. You remember that?
100%. And so, and I really do think that, with that generation of educators who were really dedicated to the craft, I think what happened is that, that went away, and nobody, I know Pat Hastings really kind of, tried. It was a little bit of a different approach, but nothing was as anatomically focused around measurements and understanding that and learn the functionality, the way that ultimately Quentin and Casey and ultimately Betty, who kind of espoused off of Casey Gardner stuff, right? That was gone. And so I think that there's a big gap, 40 years later, and it happened way before 40 years, but there's a big gap when that era died on and moved on. I mean, that was really, I think was a big disservice to dogs in general. And I really don't even know where that,
Betty McHugh's notes and information, I was just offered a few weeks ago. So there's boxes of it. So I'm actually going to take it and go through it. So
I was talking to Shelley, and I was trying to see if she had one of Casey's measurement packs, that came in like that burgundy kind of Corinthian leather pouch with all the measurement tools in, because my dad had a full set back in the day, and I don't know where it went. Like it's went the way of the dodo. But I did know that I think Tony Monk has a full set, and I know that Paul and Minnie Odekirk have a full set, and I had heard that at some point that they were maybe open to the conversation of letting someone inherit it. But so far, dude, nothing. I mean, I would jump at the chance. So kudos for you. I mean, I think that's a really great skill set to get back to and try to be able to pass that on to people. And I know that our landscape has changed and our community has changed, and we're not really the big breeding kennels are gone, and I know that the diehard people who have been around for a long time are still trying to hold on to the essential principles that got us into the sport. And I'm not saying that we should not move away from that, but I think the bigger issue is that there's a disconnect between that mindset from X number of years ago, and the current mindset where people just want to go out and have fun and get a championship on Muffy, and Muffy will never be bred, so they're not really connected into the origins of the sport. So I think that two things need to happen, and it primarily number one means the old guard and the newer generation, if there any hope of trying to be able to, bring them back into the fold, need to understand that these two perspectives exist. Number one, respect them and look about a way to be able to engage them so we're not alienating them, because I really do think we're sending the message around, if you don't understand the basics of our sport, I have no time for you. And, and I don't know if people are really thinking about, what they're communicating to people we're trying to bring back into the fold. But I think that there, is a really big educational opportunity here where people need to, just understand, number one, this is not rocket science, no matter how much you think it is. Okay, we're not solving world hunger here. We're trying to keep a sport up and moving forward, and hopefully not letting it die, because a lot of people that, lives will change, and especially people who make money and their livings from it. If this goes the way of the dodo, like, what are you going to do? So I think that we have a vested interest collectively at trying to be able to, engage this and try to be able to take baby steps towards trying to kind of get some level of engagement back. or at least at a minimum, try to be able to hold what we have. I digress. Let's jump back to Springer Spaniels.
I was going to cut you off yet. So.
Let me step down off that soapbox and let me get on to another topic, okay? But no, so we were really, really fortunate because having that opportunity very, very early with English Springer Spaniels was a really great opportunity. And so, Gary wasn't really known to be a trimmer or dogs are always a decent condition, but they weren't known to kind of, not trim like you and I did, and that's fine. I mean, it worked for him and he didn't have to worry about anything else, exactly. Yeah. And so when I started to try to show Danny, remember Joan Middleton? Remember Joan? Yeah. So she had a really handsome black and white dog, that was from the Wanaco family of dogs in Michigan. And some of the big proponents were Susan Hillman had the Action Line dog, who she was number
Shadow.
2 breeds with, in 1976, the year that Dick was all breeds with Mustache. And I think it was 76 or 77. No, 76. It was 76. And
it was 76 when he was Shadow top sporting dog 2 years in a row.
I know he was number 2 all breeds. Maybe it was 77. It was 7. Yeah, I lie. It was 77.
Because Olaf was number 2 sporting dog behind Shadow.
Oh, okay. Well, oh my God. I remember Susan showing that dog. It hit the end of a leash and rocking on. And it's just like, oh my God. It just filled your eye with everything that you think like a really good gun dog should move, like free, effortless, a ton of heart. Everlasting, temperament that would just go forever and not ask questions. I mean, that's just like, wow, like that's just what this is all about,
Yeah, he was a fun dog to watch. So.
Well, and beautifully marked as well, and of a great size, and was always in great condition. Indeed, all the above, So, Joan, they actually repeated that letter. I think it was 3 times, and the Merrimans got best in show winners out of them every time. And then Kathy Lorenzen had a littermate to Action Line. His name was Wanaco's classic replay. Herbie was a really big producer back in the late 70s and into the 80s. And at one time, he was the top producing black and white English Springer Spaniel in AKC stud registry history until a Canadian dog we'll get to shortly came in and kind of, knocked that out of the park. But anyways, Dick, when I had showing Danny against Joan, one day at Scarborough Kennel Club, I show Danny, Joan shows Emmett, as Nicole name was. She wins the breed. I come out of the ring, throw a little bit of a hissy fit. My mom comes up and she rips a leash out of my hand. And she said, if you ever do that again, you're never going to show another dog as long. And I'm like, what? What?
We saw it happen all the time. We couldn't help ourselves back then, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah. But Dick saw the whole thing happen, Dick Mean. And so he came up to me and said, come on over when you get a chance. And he was set up with Carol Hollins and said, come on over and let's talk a little bit about conditioning and trimming and hair maintenance and all that stuff. Well, we didn't know. He had a lot of hair. And so I went over and I'll never forget this day. The biggest words of advice that he said was, apart from tips on how to be able to manage, proper, coat growth and conditioning, was go talk to people who are not in your breed, who are not your direct competitors, and have a conversation with them because you're not a threat to them. And they'll probably spill, all their secrets because you're never going to walk in with an Afghan. Go talk to people who have side panel hair. What are they doing to protect the pea areas and all that stuff? And how are they keeping them white and all that stuff? And that's literally what I did. So, that was kind of start of a new focus for me. And Danny was a bit of a challenge. At this time when my parents bought him, he was top Springer in Canada in 70. Maybe 70. I thought it was 77 and 78. That's why I originally said Shadow was 76.
Might be right. I have to go back and look.
But he was 5 years old when my parents got him. He just turned 5 in the June, and we got him around the September of 79, or whatever. Yeah, 79. And so, so a couple years later, once I'd started to do some spit and polish on him and kind of, apply what I'd done, I was able to get his jacket back to a level. It was never going to be great, just from years of just having some shortcuts taken and all that stuff, and not really. And livers are way harder to manage from a condition perspective, as you know, than black and whites. Or give me a black any day, you can put the spit and polish on it pretty quickly,
Yeah.
And so when I brought Danny back out at 7, he was in much better condition. His side panel was great, and he hit, his whites were white. And I started to win a few groups of him as a veteran, because he still had that heart. He still wanted to go out there and do it, and he was still being used and bred really well. But now back to Diana. She had bred to Danny, and she got a really good litter. One of the dogs his name was Immigrant's Striker, and Diana got a couple of puppy shows on him, and then a litter mate dog of his, Joan Middleton, had gotten, and ultimately Mary White showed him out west because she was still living out in Alberta. And so she showed him one year and made him, top springer. And then the bitch, Katie Rotley, got as a stud dog puppy, and her name was Annie. And she was, oh my God, she was the cutest. So just after we had gotten Danny, Katie was like, yeah, I'm not a springer person. I love Annie. And so we had the opportunity to get Annie, and we loved her. She was the sweetest temperament. And so we bred her back to the Pheasant Lane Enterprise dog, the handsome black and white puppy that was kicking our butts with the field dog. And we ended up getting a really great litter out of that. And one of the dogs, his call name was I called him Sparky, but his call name was Joey. We ended up, selling him to a guy who wanted him shown. And he was a really handsome dog, black and white, and just a lot to like. I remember at the Barry show, Gene Fletcher was judging, and a guy named Ed Sellier, do you remember him? Ed Sellier from the States. His call name was Sellier, and he had a dog named Quarterback Sneak. And I think Ed was like a college football coach, and had a really big reputation and career in that space. Big guy. He'd come up to Canada quite regularly. And the Quarterback Sneak dog actually, I think, had won the U.S. National. And this was this big, mature dog with lots of hair. And he had come to finish his Canadian championship during the summer circuits. And of course, Barrie was the biggest one, at the time, right? Up in Molson Park. And so what happened was I was showing Sparky. Gene Fletcher was judging, and she had all of her in Navajo Indian jewelry on. I remember they used to get decked out in that, and little, Sean Cassidy Springer. Well, I ended up winning the breed from the classes that day for a 5-point win under Gene Fletcher, and you just saw Ed's face. He's not that. My dog was like barely 2. His dog was 5-year-old mature dog, U.S. national specialty winner, up to do some damage on the summer circuit, get his dog done. Except for that one day in Barrie, Ontario. Oh my God! So it's those things, and that's again. Please don't misinterpret anything I'm saying. I'm not talking anything about, their level of their judging ability or whatever. That's not even on. This is just a really great memory where I'm reminiscing, where it's like, you never discount the underdog, because stuff can happen.
Oh, for sure.
Get in there, like you're going to win it. Okay. And see
where I remember.
Oh my God, so funny. But again, we were really blessed. And my parents didn't breed for very long. I mean, they were really kind of only in Springers for probably about 9 years. But we were lucky enough to get their kennel name registered permanently with CKC until they ended up separating and going their way. But I kept on in the dogs. I kept on pushing forward. And of course, I was working. I got my first full-time job, when I was 19, and retired from that. in 2014. But at the same time, I was still showing dogs on the weekends, kind of doing the circuit and all that stuff, and still involved with the breed. And my wife Kelly and I, we bred a couple litters as well, and bred a few best in show winners, and I was super lucky. But when I started to really kind of campaign dogs, I started to show dogs primarily I think the biggest client that really had that focus of wanting to get out there and do some damage was Lori Dobson from Barrie. And I love Lori. She was a really great person. And she had, remember that Strider dog? She had a liver leg. Yeah. Had a liver leg on the non-show side. Yeah, and I think the really good thing about that dog was he was just so sound. It didn't matter. The liver leg didn't detract. He wasn't flailing his front or whatever.
It made you remember him, if anything. So
100% for sure. I think we were lucky that it was on the non-show side, because he had a big bib, so kind of hid a little bit of that, that visual. But having said that, I remember the year Julie Roberts in the Minneapolis U.S. National, Annie Rogers Clark gave her winner's dog the U.S. National with a handsome black and white dog, full sleeve down to the white paw on the show side, and it did not matter. That dog was so stylish, and what a great dog. And and I think that has really helped me. In my breed in particular, markings are irrelevant. I mean, I know that a lot of people gravitate towards the collar and the solid saddle and stuff, right? But I've always been really good to be able to look beyond the markings. And in fact, in English Springer Spaniels, to me, what I actually prefer is a fine blaze on the head or no blaze. I think it just frames the face better visually. I'm more attracted towards it.
It's not a typical what we're used to seeing. That's what it's very typical to see the big blaze, the big shawl, the big, it's just very typical look for us.
100% for sure. But I would never ever let that kind of detract from the fact that a dog is a good dog, regardless of what the markings are like. Unless there's something that's not a DQ, in the breed as far as markings are concerned. If it's completely, at the owner's discretion or whatever, then I have no issue with it whatsoever. But excuse me. And so I was really lucky that and I had met in Hutchinson through dogs. Obviously, she originally lived down in Niagara. And the English Springer Spaniel Club of Ontario at the time had a really good membership and following. And so I remember meeting Anne. She's only a couple years older than I am, and she was at one of the meetings. And so we ended up getting a line on a family of dogs and Anne, oh my God, she will to this day refuse to believe this story. But I remember one time, our argument's the wrong choice of words. It wasn't an argument, but she really kind of took it like, what are you talking about, right? And I said, yeah. She's like, absolutely not. I'm like, absolutely yes. So what happened is there was a guy named Harry Reid who lived down in Niagara, and he produced a really great litter. There was 3 litter mates. One dog that he kept, that Jennifer McCauley did a big campaign with, got a couple best in shows on him, okay? And Carrie also kept a bitch. And then and then there was another dog who was sold to a family in the Niagara region. And we had just gotten Danny, and Harry called my dad and said, Dave, there's a Springer dog. He's a litter mate to Jesse and Josie, and he's a really good dog. And a young guy, the son bought him, and he can't keep him, and he's tied up in the backyard, and he's yours for $100. And Dad was like, you know what? Love the opportunity because it's a great pedigree. He was out of Telltale Author, which coincidentally was the same breed combination as Danny was. Danny was Aristocrat's son, #1 all-time producing all-breed sire record in the U.S. still to this day. Aristocrat, bred to a selling classic daughter, was a really great combination. Generationally, that produced hundreds of champions and best in show winners. Telltale Author, Dolores String, the Telltale lady who love her to death. Telltale Author was the same combination, author bred to a classic bitch, okay, as Danny. So what happened is that we had to pass down on the dog. Next thing we know, Anne Hutchinson gets the dog. And that was her Kiwanis Sharabian dog, Dealer. who was a lovely dog.
Remember Dealer? Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And that was Anne's heart dog. Like it was kind of probably her first big, stud dog that was being used by people, and a really lovely
Brian
dog.
showed Dealer once in a while.
Yes. 100% for sure. And I think did Gary show him? Gary showed him too. Oh, I got another great story, dude. This is great. So, United Kennel Club 1980. Gary is showing the Sturdy Patch dog. He's number one sporting dog that year.
English setter dog, yeah.
Gary was going to show Dealer as a sporting dog the very next day. This was November of 1980. I'm at United. Gary wins the breed with bow dogs. Gary says to me, Stephen, do you want to take the Springer dog into the group? Absolutely. So anyways, so off I go in, okay, and guess who wins the group and guess who goes group 2? There's a quiz at the end of this, and guess who the judge was? Well,
oh no.
Eve Whitmore. Oh my God.
That's where it all started, right?
I love Eve. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God. She was just the mom. Anyways, so, and at United as well, Gary let me take Dealer into junior handling that weekend. Guess who won junior handling? And that was under Linda Moore. And so years later, Linda was still alive, and I was judging, and we were out at a show in the States, and I ended up telling, because Linda and LA were still together, and I ended up telling her, about my United experience, and she's like, "Oh my God, that was a lifetime ago." I mean, yes, it was. And now an all-breed judge, and thanks to you. And anyway, I'm only joking, but I mean, oh my God, well, those memories, it's just fantastic. And what a great way to reminisce about people. It's the same thing, a couple of years ago, I don't know what got me thinking, but I got thinking about Arlene Lloyd, and Tracy and I are connected on Facebook, and she had posted a picture of her mom, and I ended up, using the photo with her permission, and I posted something about people that are gone that really treated you well and were really an inspiration for you in the sport of dogs for whatever reason. They left a mark on you, etc. And so I did a post one day with using the picture with Arlene, and Tracy connected with me, and she said, "Oh my God," she's just like, "Thank you so much. You did not need to do that." And I just said, "No, I know I didn't." I said, "But I was inspired to, because I got reminiscent about your mom and how well she treated me and what a great dog person she was, and she always had a kind word to say, and taken too soon, and just a lovely individual."
Yeah, I remember Arlene.
Oh my gosh, you're so cool.
Great memory.
But no, so I started to when I reconnected with Anne, I started working with Anne on the Serenade English Springer Spaniel lady. They had her and her husband Paul had moved to the Ottawa area, and I started to show dogs for her, and that's kind of the next big dog that I started to campaign. That was 93, I think, 93, 94. When was Allison talk with Luke? 95.
5, because 93 I was showing Addie, and you were on my tail all year long.
You were top dog with Addie that year, the Irish setter. I was number 2 all breeds, number 2 sporting, number 2, and then 94 Cody was number 1 all breeds, and then 95, and that was year Allison started to show Luton, and then 95 she was top dog all breeds with Luton. So and what a great. So after I kind of done broken all the records with Springers in Canada, I was like, I started showing the States more, so kind of come into that 1990, early 90s window. I started to go down to the U.S. and kind of do more U.S. shows, and in particular Springer Specialties and U.S. Nationals, and had a lot of really great clients and a lot of really good success, and met all the people that were of that era who just left an indelible mark on the breed that we're never going to get back. Like, we are never going to get back, because it's a numbers game, and the generation, generational replacement of that collective body of knowledge. I'm not so sure. And it's just not in my breed. Well, you got to see it in other breeds as well, and you must hear other people talk about it as well, but no, my God, those were the good old days. And so we were lucky as well. We had couple of litters. We had gotten a bitch from Robin Novak, and she had and Monica had a litter where they had 3 litter mates, Mason, Mallory, and Opal, who were doing a lot of specialty winning down in the U.S. And Monica actually sent Mason up to me. He was still youngish, before they started to push him, a little bit more in the U.S. She sent him up to me for half a year, and I made him number 1 springer that year, and I think number 6 sporting dog or whatever, and got a best in shows on them. But one in particular was under Stephen Shaw at Belleville, and that was still a really big show. And he was just gravitated towards the dog, a really pretty, black and white dog, and had a lot going for him, and so it was always, and so Dexter. So Dexter kind of was on the scene. It was after Cody. Cody was in that 93, 94 window. Dexter was kind of more 1997, and he was a stud fee puppy that Anne ended up getting back. He was sired by one of Anne's dogs, bred to a bitch that Sheila Kingsborough had bred, and Sheila Kingsborough was the country lane lady in Caledon, super nice lady. And I showed dogs.
I just saw her I saw her last Christmas.
No way. Where were you?
I was at Lindy's party, and she was there.
Oh, yeah. So her and Lindy went to school together. Yeah, and when Terry
we chatted for quite some time about springers.
Oh my God, I loved her. So, and when her husband Terry passed away, I told Lindy about it, and she went out of her way to go in and connect with Sheila, and so they obviously still stay connected. Too bad I wasn't there. Lindy invited me to come, and we couldn't go, but I would have died if I had walked in and Sheila was there. I spent a ton of time up at their place, and they had a dog at Country Lane Homegrown who was out of a Jester bred dog and one of Sheila's bitches, and she didn't do a lot of breeding, had a couple litters a year max type thing, but always was very purposeful in the quality of dog and her plan and all that stuff. And she had some really good local success. But the homegrown dog I think he was the first springer I ever won a best in show on. And that was, that was when was that? I don't remember that. I don't remember. It was in the 80s at some point, I'm pretty sure. And so Sheila was just a lovely lady. And so where's it going with that? So it was a Sheila bred bitch to one of Anne's dogs, and a lady in North Bay had bred this litter, and Anne got a stud fee puppy back, and he was a little bit different than her typical style of dogs. So Anne's true foundation of dogs was from Mary Lee Hindy, the Canark lady out of the Cleveland area in Ohio, and her brother was Clint. Oh my God, last name showed Adam and James. Clint Harris. Clint Harris was her brother. And
wow.
Yeah. And so Mary Lee, oh my God, I think she's since passed away, but if she did, it's recently, and she's like 104 years old or whatever. She's just like fantastic, and bred a lot of really, really great dogs. And she was kind of more known for being a really good bitch foundation and a really good producing bitch line, In fact, the whole Wanako family of dogs, I believe, was Salmon's classic bred to a bitch that never finished her championship called Canark Yankee Tea Party. And so that combination was the action line, all of that repeat family of dogs. And so Anne had Dexter. We were the Ottawa Kennel Club, and I was showing.
What was Dexter's full name? I can't remember. I remember Dexter, obviously.
Serenade Storm Warning.
Storm Warning. Yeah.
And so what happened was, and he was a young dog in 1997. And what happened was, Anne came to Ottawa, was there for the shows, and she brought Dexter and put him up on the table, and she said, what do you think? He's a little bit different. And he was different, but I said, wow, like, this is a really special dog. And, she kept him, and you put some spit and polish on him. And then I ended up I ended up showing him, but I lie. That was the same year I was showing Cody, because what happened is Anna's like, well, I got Dexter and I wanted to do some puppy winning. And I said, Anna, I can't win best in shows. I win puppy shows the same show. It's just not realistic. So at that time, my long dear friend, Lori Gauvin, and I said to Anne, why don't you send Dexter to Lori and let Lori have some fun with him in Quebec? Okay, we're not going to compete. And if I decide I'm going to go to Quebec, she just won't, show Dexter. And, that was what worked out really well. And Lori did a great job. So Trish Partington was still working for Lori, and she lives in Toronto now. And we see her at the local dog shows regularly. She looks
my classes once in a while. She's great.
Oh, she looks exactly the same. The minute that I saw her, she came up to me at Erie Shores, and I looked, and I was like, no way. Are you joking? I gave her a big hug. She looked exactly the same as she did when she was like 14 years old, and so Lori showed Dexter in Quebec, and I think she won a couple of best in shows on him as a puppy dog, and won a whole bunch of puppy shows. What a handsome dog. And
Lori was a very talented handler.
Oh my God. She was... Yeah, she could do anything. Hair, doodle, trim. Very, very talented. First time I met her, she was at the Chinguzi Dog Show when Harold was showing Looker, and. Is
that when she had to show Looker because Harold hurt him?
She did.
Because then she ended up hurting herself, and I showed Looker under Eve Whitmore when Best in Show.
She twisted her ankle, didn't she, or something, or whatever? I remember that. Yeah. I was the first time.
Because I remember walking her to ringside. I said, I feel like Michael Hill. But I had to show Looker in Best in Show, and under your Mrs. Whitmore. Were you in the ring that day? I can't remember.
No, but it's interesting. It's interesting because at that show, Anne gave me Best Puppy in Show with Sheila Kingsborough's homegrown dog. Eve was a sucker for a black. She likes the breed, but she was a sucker for black and white springers. That was really where I think she got pulled more towards, the style of the blacks. She would do for any good dog, but I think was more pulled in the direction of black and whites. And so Sheila Kingsborough's homegrown dog was perfectly marked black and white dog. And he had a lot to like about him, So Best Puppy in Show under Eve at that show. And then fast forward to Midland Kennel Club. What was that? The following summer, Harold's in there for Best in Show with Looker. Stevie Dainard's in there with, the country lane homegrown dog. Guess who goes Best in Show? Will under Eve Whitmore. Oh my God. I love that lady.
You did like your black and white springers.
I love that
lady. It seemed like you won Best in Show every time.
Oh my gosh.
Cody under her.
My gosh. So the Dexter dog, started to get, and I got to really thank, Monica Collins, for this, because she saw something in him initially when he was she did Best in Sweepstakes, Judge Best in Sweepstakes at the Canadian National at the time, which I think was in conjunction with Callan or something at the airport show. And she had never seen him before. And she gave him Best in Sweepstakes in a heartbeat and said, I want to use this dog. And so she bred to one of her bitches, and that ultimately produced her Lena bitch, which I think she won the breed, the Gardens, like 4 times and placed a couple of times. And up until Melanie King, with the black and white dog of Kathy's, broke the specialty Best in Show record. Lena had the specialty Best in Show record with like 45 specialties or whatever that number was in the U.S., and held that for a number of years. And I remember going and seeing that litter as well. I went down, it was some Michigan shows, and Dave and Andrea Charlton co-bred the litter with Monica, and they were lovely people. And they had a big litter. I think there was like 9 puppies, and we were evaluating the litter, and Anne was with us as well. And Monica's, pull was to the black and whites as well, but she puts Lena on the table, and they were young, and I was just like, oh no, I think I'm kind of vibing this one. And Monica's looking, and she's like, yeah, I think I see it. Well, they had a lot of success. I think that litter, like the whole litter finished or whatever, but she ultimately ended up keeping Lena, and that was, one of her heart dogs that she did a ton of winning.
Very memorable dog, Lena. Very memorable.
My gosh. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Am I gabbing on too much there, buddy, or what?
Well, you told me you couldn't talk for an hour. Well, you're going to. Do you remember when we first met?
Give me one of those. Yes, I do. So, from what I recall, that was at the Ajax show.
What dog show was that?
So, what that was the name? No, it wasn't. Was there an Ajax? I think it was an Ajax Kennel Club. I want to say there was.
Ajax Kennel Club?
Ringing a bell, eh? I'm thinking it was Ajax Kennel Club, and it was just off of like Harwood.
You need to call Elaine Whitney. She'll know.
Elaine will know for sure, yeah. But and so this is when we had our first two springers. Okay, so we had the field bred dog, and then we bought the conformation bred bitch, and I was showing the conformation bitch in juniors, and I had never been in juniors before. And
you were big.
I was tall. I think the minute I hit 13, I was 6'4".
Yeah, you were a tall kid. I'm like, what's this kid doing in juniors?
That was it. So but look who we're comparing against. So anyway,
I was the average size of a 10-year-old.
There you go. Yes. So I enter her. She's like 2.5-year-old bitch, whatever she was. Enter her and open. And juniors is waiting. We're standing at ringside. And all of a sudden, Ed Dixon comes up with his pad, and he's like, "Who's number whatever?" And so I just put my hand up because you're kind of intimidating in your face type of guy, you know. And so I said to him, "Well, it's me." And he's like, "Have you ever shown in juniors before?" I'm like, "No." "Well, you can't be an open." I'm like, "Why? She's 2.5 years old. She's an open bitch, right?" I had no idea, right? Anyway, so he changed the classes or whatever, went in, did whatever we had to do. But one thing, and I know that's where I met you, was that weekend. But the bigger takeaway for me that weekend, Will, I have to admit, okay,
wasn't meeting me.
It was not meeting you. And when I tell you why, you're going to understand exactly where I'm coming from. So Miss Jody Allward, of the Wolfdane Irish Wolfhound fame, okay, was hot on the scene. She was the person to be, not only in the hound group, but at best in show level. And Jody had this outfit on that is memorable. and she, had a way of moving around the ring that drew your attention to her assets. And I'll never forget. She went best in show that day, and I was just like, "This is what dog shows are all about." This woman.
That's what I want to do.
I'm a lifer. Oh my God! And Jody,
I think we all had a crush on Jody over the kids.
I love that woman. I think and even when she was handling and all that stuff, I was always a super big fan, and we got along really, really well.
She was a great handler.
And her mom was awesome as well. I mean, She was a lovely lady, and her aunt as well. And so. And I really do miss, her. I mean, I know that she has a family and all that stuff, and she has a great life. But people like that who have exited the dog scene because of, circumstances or whatever, I think that this generation of dog people are missing out on someone who has so much knowledge, not only from a breeding perspective, but from a showing perspective. And I just, she's one of the ones in my book of memorables for sure, because she just had so much knowledge and was truly talented,
No, she was so charismatic to watch show a dog. Like it was captivating. Like wolfhounds, we didn't see wolfhounds shown like that.
There's no way. And and she showed Fernand for springers for a while. She showed Nancy's Elmer dog, and did some decent winning with him as well. And she was kind of poking her finger around the springer ring there occasionally, and always happy to lose to her because it was always warranted, and she always was talented and had a good dog, All
right, so I'll give you that. It was more memorable meeting Jody.
There we go.
I'll give you that. Whatever.
Dude, you were a close second.
Close second.
Said no one ever. Oh my God, those were the good old days, eh? Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah. And I think what
I do remember that day. You know why I remember that day? Because I remember meeting, besides Jody, you at ringside, because there was this big 6-foot man boy in junior handling.
Yeah.
And he had the dog on the wrong side. I remember telling you to put the dog in the other side.
I love it. Yeah, I would totally, for sure. So technically it's your fault. Right? Too funny. Oh my gosh.
But it was fun.
Yeah, those were the good old days, buddy. What happened for me real quickly before we kind of sign off.
Well, you haven't even told us about judging yet. So you've got 12 minutes.
So let's transition. And, so I was U.S. going hard. I was down there every weekend. It was a decision that Kelly and I made that afforded her the opportunity to be able to stay home. We had 3 young kids, And so what happened was ultimately I hit the wall. My gallbladder exploded and I was just like, I almost passed away. And I was like, I am going too hard. I got a full-time job. And so I made the decision to back away from handling and to focus on my career, with the Toronto Trans Commission. And that was good. But I felt empty. I felt like all these years in dogs, for it to end like this, it just seemed the wrong way to go out, And somebody, I don't remember who, so wanted to judge. And I was like, oh, never thought about that. So I ended up looking into that, and literally I had my first assignment in April of 2004. So I've been judging for 22 years now. And I've been
that long, does it?
Oh my God! And I've been all breed for 9 years, and I think that was a really great evolution for me because all of this foundational dog knowledge we're talking about, you just can't learn unless you're in the trenches and you've got mentors to be able to, was a really great foundation for transitioning to judging. And I'm not saying I always get it right, but the really great thing about this and the perspective that you learn as a result of that is that, one error, whether it was breeding or handling or trimming or whatever, didn't define you. It's what you did with that error and that knowledge to improve yourself moving forward. And we would do it all the time. When you take a dog that's raw and you're working with it and you try one thing on and it's not vibing and you try something else, and eventually what you do is you master that. So I also think that that's a mindset that you can apply not only to showing, as we just talked about in that example, but whether it's judging or whether it's breeding. It's just evolution where you're not defined by your errors, but your ability to be able to get it right the next time. And so that's always been something that I've really kind of held, close to my heart in anything that I've done. And so the judging was a really great evolution for me because I didn't feel the need to be on the road every weekend and just that lifestyle.
You did come back and show me a dog, Stormy.
Yeah, so what happened was, and so the bitch that we got from Robin and Monica, that was part of the Mason Mallory Opal litter, Sybil never made it out of the kennel. She was a liver and white. They focused on the black and whites because they were programmed like that, right? But Sybil was truly a beautiful English Springer Spaniel. She was built like, she was lovely. Beautiful head, so much going for her. And what was great, a really hairy bitch line, like male special hair. You had to cut it off, okay? And so that's a really great quality to be able to have in a line of bitches because it gives you so much depth and versatility from a breeding perspective, right? And good quality hair too. And so we ended up breeding. I had a Dexter son that I was showing for Carmen Bursey. Oh my God, love my Carmen. Originally, she's the Sandy Hill English Springer Spaniels. Her and her husband originally lived in Sandy Hill, Ottawa area, and her and John ended up going to the U.S. and the Michigan area on like a trades, visa. The U.S. was looking for people in trades. I think John was a printer. So they moved to Michigan and raised a family there. And so I actually met Carmen, oh my God, Springer Stories, at the Midland Kennel Club again. I was a kid. She was up with one of her first American champions that Dennis Niola showed for Carmen in the States, okay? And guess who shows up? Anne Savory with a dog named Lynbrook's Pound Sterling, who had won the breed at Westminster with Bobby Barlow showing it. Anne and Bill Pace had the dogs up, but Anne was showing the Lynbrook Pound Sterling dog, and Carmen had just come to the Canadian Championship, and she walks into this big winning Springer that was owned by Marisha Paddock in the U.S. And so what happened was Carmen was the first non-American that I had really kind of got to know, and we were lifelong friends up until the day she passed away. I showed dogs for her. She was absolutely a lovely individual. So she had bred a telltale bitch, she called with Dolores, to Dexter during that era. And there was the Sandy Hill Sandman dog, which Howard Hubert campaigned in the U.S. I finished him in the U.S. and Canada as a young dog, and we ended up breeding our Monica and Robin bitch to Sandy, and that's how we got the Storm litter. And this Sandy dog, Will, you have never seen a better springer on his legs. That dog could move forever, and he was just like breathtaking. And so we were lucky because he passed that on to, the bitch that we kept. And I never forget this. We were up in the litter, and the minute Storm came out, I looked at her angles and I just said, "This is the one we're keeping." I could just tell with them wet from back to that structure foundation. I could just tell, and they never went off. And once they kind of went through all growing or whatever, I'd go through all. I like this one, I like this one better. But I always revert back to whatever my impression was as they were coming out of the womb. Well, I really was the ones that structure were always the best ones to keep, right? So Storm, we ended up showing her in, I think it was 2007. Does that make sense? 2007? 2007.
Like that, yeah.
No, 2007.
You hadn't been out for a while, so you had her all done up, and you asked me to come and look at her and just tell you what I thought change-wise,
So that was 2007. That was right, because I just started judging, and I basically took the year off because what happened is Marlene had taken Storm down to some U.S. shows for us. She had got a major honor and a single, and showed her a couple of local shows up here and got a couple of group placements on her and all that stuff. And Jem McClintock showed her for me a couple of weekends as a puppy as well. And so we kind of sat on her. And so eventually I was like, we're going to finish her. Like, let's show her locally. Okay. And then we'll get her down in the States. Like, let's get her back into the scope of being a showgirl locally. I have to waste money traveling the States. Right. So the first weekend I showed her, I think we got like 2 or 3 best in shows on her. And I was like, oh, wow, she's a hot damn little showgirl, right? And then so eventually, she ended up being number 2 sporting dog that year. And I think she was number 3 all breeds. And we were really grateful for those accomplishments because we really just were trying to get her ready for the U.S. And so eventually what happened is in December, the only weekend available, we had never made it out of Canada. I entered at the Cleveland cluster. Okay, in December, and she'd only had the 4 points, and so we entered the 4 shows, and we literally went best winners every day for all the majors, and we got out on the Sunday before this major snowstorm came through, and we were back in Canada, so everything worked out. But ultimately, when we bred her, we got 2 best in show sons, of which Jack was one of them that you helped me finish in Kalamazoo, because Lynn Watt owned him with us, and she, oh my God, what a great lady! And Will, I think they just passed away last year, and Jack and his littermate Aiden, Karen McCaffrey, they live up in Alberta now.
I saw Karen not too long ago, and I was out there.
Oh, she's awesome. So they passed away at 15. They were 15 years old, those 2 dogs. Yeah. Oh, those are the good old days.
You got a lot of good old days.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah. Now I'm just a ball of memories. And a box
we're going to sit at dogs for like this.
A bunch of memories and a box of Depends.
Nice.
It's the downside of getting
older. We're not
that
old, Steve.
We're getting there, dude.
Oh,
I know.
Doesn't seem like it.
How does it happen? I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't understand how this happens, right? Because in your mind, you're still, like whatever,
Yeah.
Yeah, the body.
And you walk by a mirror and go, oh, man.
What? What's my dad doing here? That's what I get. It's like,
I remember going to see Monica and I went to go see Billy Joel somewhere. And I don't know if you've seen Billy Joel lately. He's mature.
Yeah.
So he came out on stage, and the first thing he said was, "I'm sorry Billy couldn't make it today. I'm Billy's dad."
I love it. But it's so much talent, eh?
Oh my God, she was incredible. So,
oh my God. So, it's interesting. So Kelly and I started to watch this thing on Netflix, and it's called Resident Alien. And I don't even know what we got onto. There's a couple of seasons on there, and it's super funny. And it's for one of the guys from The Knight's Tale, that movie. He was a redheaded jester kind of guy that plays the alien. But there was a line in the episode we watched last night, and the girl who's the main actress in this is being interrogated by a competing alien race. They want to know more intelligence on the resident alien dude, and so he's kind of pressuring her, and he's taking notes, because he's got to understand why this alien guy's on, so what he's doing on Earth, and so he's like, "Who does he report to?" And the lead girl says his real name is Mork, and he's from a planet called Orc. And I broke into circle laughter, and I said to Kelly, I said, the sad thing about that is 99% of the audience, that joke is going to get lost on. They're going to lose. Yes. I thought it was hilarious anyways.
Yeah, it is. I would have laughed too. So.
Oh my God, too funny. Yeah.
So what's next for Steve?
What's next? So, you know what? I still involved with the CBJA. I'm the vice president for administration, and that's a lot of fun. It keeps me involved in a volunteer capacity. We're also
CBJ
members.
Is Canadian Dog Judges Association, for those of you that don't know.
And great group of people, and we're a volunteer organization. We're trying to do our best to represent the best interests for confirmation judges in Canada. And we're members of Seaway Kennel Club, and we're also members for a really great kennel club called Old York Kennel Club. And so that was a really good experience this year. Will, unfortunately, had a conflicting event, and so I was able to be show superintendent, and it was a lot. It was busy, but it was a really good experience. And Linda is a rock star. That lady is so organized, and she beats to a different drum, and good on her. Oh, I gotta mention too, when I was 16, I worked for Linda. Like that was part of the whole hair thing as well. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And back in the day, you could not beat her. She was
supposed to be better with those dogs.
Oh yeah. But anyway, so I digress. And I've started a new business concept, which I'm developing right now, and more to come on that. But it's really taking a lot of my time in a good way. It's productive. It keeps the brain going, and it's really been an excellent experience. It's been a bit of a growing pain, but I'm super stoked, and I'm really proud of what I developed. And I have another. It's an application, a subscriber-based application. I have another one I'm working on that's more mortgage related, which is my second career. We're both mortgage brokers. We work from home, and so the second application I'm developing is in the mortgage space. It's more centric to that profession. And that's going to be a really great project. So keeping, the mind juices going, and being productive, and touch wood. I think I'm also programmed that physically, as long as I'm able to, I'll be going with something until I kick it and I cannot do it anymore.
Until we have to
you
smash
hear it,
our
right?
odometer and push it back.
There you go.
Anyway, well, thanks, man. You said you couldn't talk an hour. Well, you're an hour and 2
I can
minutes.
keep going. Well, can we go into hour two or what?
I interviewed Gabe, and Gabe wouldn't stop. I had to do 2 parts.
Oh, it's funny.
It was a great interview. But thanks, buddy. I really appreciate this. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, and I look forward to hearing more about the new business at some point. And
there we go.
Welcome aboard, Old York Kennel Club. I talked about videoing you, and then I thought, I'll let you in. So.
Well, I think I said something to Linda along the lines, you know what, I'll be prepared to be a member until Will pisses me off, and then I quit.
What I remember was when you took over superintendent for me because I was off doing something. You were going to wear my badge that said president, but you're going to on the other side it said Will is a dick.
I did. It was a dickhead. The label said is a dickhead. I got a lot of use of that. So on the Thursday, I had the Will Alexander president, badge, and then I had that label on the flip side. So when I put my lapel, so then as the weekend went on into Friday, etc., everyone's like, "Oh, where's your name badge? You're not Will anymore." I said, "Yeah, that wasn't working for me. I got too much flack. I had to take it off."
Just so everybody knows, we do this all the time.
100%.
So for 50 years or 40 years, whatever we've known each other, it's been the same.
There you go. That's coming up on 50 years. Yeah. Yeah, it's 50 years. That's a long time. Dude, you're old. I'm slightly older than you, but you're old.
Well, sometimes I feel old.
There we go.
All right, man. It's great to see you.
Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Have a great day,
brother.
Take care.
Thanks, Steve. That was great reminiscing with you. Too many memories. If you like what you see here, make sure you press the like, share, and subscribe button. And don't forget about the podcast, The Dog Show Drive, which comes out every Thursday. Until then, guys, take care.